And joining us now on Static this evening, it is indeed a pleasure to be sitting opposite Mr. Wayne Coyne from the Flaming Lips.
Oh, well, thank you, Chris. All right, it's a big deal being here, huh?
Welcome back to Australia. Actually, a lot of people probably don't know that you have visited here once before.
That's true. And, you know, I honestly have to admit that I'm not actually sure where we were. It was such a quick journey. I think it was only like 4 or 5 days. We must have played 3 of the...
Alternative
what was
Nation.
then the old, sort of like the Lollapalooza or something, the Alternative Nation tour, which happens. I guess it was later in the year.
Yeah,
like
that was
March or something like that.
It was a one-off in the middle of a field.
And I don't know.
It was a mud bath.
Was that the only year that it happened?
Oh yes.
Oh, I see. From what I could tell, it looked like it was good. I mean, there was a lot of people there, and it seemed like a lot of, substantially popular bands. 9 Inch Nails, Tool, and. Like live. I remember we met Lou Reed.
Lou Reed made an appearance, yeah. But I mean, it was a mud bath. It was a bad experience on the other side, believe me. It was like Armageddon, you know.
I remember it did rain. Yeah.
Well, I mean, that was sort of a pivotal time for Flaming Lips as well, wasn't it? Because it was in the wake of, She Don't Use Jelly.
In a way, it sort of seems like we're lucky that we've had like 4 or 5 different pivotal moments, and so you don't know they're pivotal until they're like 5 years old, and you're like, wow, that was really a moment. But
as far as you were concerned, that was the start of the hit years, right?
Well,
were you getting used to the top 40?
Thing, when we had that sort of hit, it started in '93 and went through '94, and by the time we got here, it was 1995. So it's like sort of a hit that everybody knows the song, but it's never like you have. It's not like you've sold 1 million records in 6 months. So you're constantly doing stuff. And we actually were recording our next record, Clouds Taste Metallic. And then we sort of interrupted that session to come down here and play this strange doomed festival. And it was a strange time because even while we were recording the follow-up record to that record was still sort of, climbing up the charts and selling a bunch. But it was selling in a sense like a single does. And I don't mean anything bad by it, but like to teenagers and stuff. And I would run into people all the time, I still do, who know simply just that one song and don't know anything else that we've done, which is fine by me. But we didn't see a big difference in our audience. We'd run into people who knew the song, who really didn't even know who we were. To where as our career has sort of moved along, now we seem to run into people who know almost everything else about us and don't realize that we've had this one weird little top 40 hit.
Yeah, well, and I guess almost more importantly as well, rather than people knowing the song, I mean, that song really did sort of help prolong the band's livelihood, maybe.
Oh, it totally did.
In terms of like the record company gave you a lot of leeway with Warner Brothers.
It totally did. I mean, and people don't realize how important it is, to actually sell records and make money and be somewhat successful like that, because art and all this, all the coolness that's attached to making art and all that. People love that, but they don't love it as much as they love money. And
someone has to pay for the art too at some point, Wayne.
They do, and we knew that going into it as well. It wasn't as though by the time we got signed to Warner Bros., it wasn't like we were real young. I mean, we'd already been on an indie label for 7 years, and so we sort of knew. I mean, we made our own records and all that sort of stuff. So by the time 1994 came around, when that started to really sell a lot of records, it was a great relief because we sold all these records and we could see that we had a couple of years where we could relax and maybe, start to do something new or different or whatever. Yeah. And this is really at a horrible time in the record industry in America, like post 1995, 96, 97. Everybody that we knew at almost every record label got dropped and was fired. And so the whole thing sort of changed. And luckily we had this.
If that hadn't happened, it might have relegated you to much more of an also-ran status or something. I guess the other thing was, in those sort of intervening years, it did give you the amazing power when a record company like yours, like Warner Brothers, would drop someone like Prince, who wanted to release a 3-CD set. I found great justice they kept you and let you release a 4-CD set with Eureka.
But to our own credit, I mean, because we understand the way that the music industry works to a certain extent, we don't spend lots of money, and we are, in a sense, always working for some sort of success. Well, I do think sometimes artists, they take it the wrong way. They think it should be more about art and not so much about money. But, it can't work that way. It has to generate some sort of income for somebody. And so, I think we just got lucky that because we had this enough success, we had an insight into, I kind of see how this is all about.
Having it happen in that order as well must have given you a good meditation on the way you wanted the band to be and sort of the effect of longevity as well, Wayne.
Well, it does. Accidentally, it does. I mean, experience is really the best thing that can ever happen to you. Up until then, I think we had assumed, like a lot of young people do, that the whole thing is kind of fixed, and you must know some rich, powerful guy at the top. And if he doesn't like you, nothing ever happens. And we've really proven that that's not true at all. I mean,
the best thing someone in a band has ever said to me is it's a total lottery. Like someone's...
It is. It really is. And I think some people, I don't think they like that. I think they would rather it be that, if you kiss the right butt on the way up, then you're going to be a rock star. But really, it's not like that. I mean, last year we won a Grammy. I mean, and I would have thought of all the things within the organized music industry that something like a Grammy has to be a bunch of corruption, a bunch of people all sort of deciding.
Well, I didn't tell you I slipped some money under the table when you were
Well, thank you, Chris. It worked fine.
And I guess, I mean, all that experience with a band, with having that longevity as well, must make you be able to meditate on a broader picture as well. I mean, a record like the latest one, Yoshimi, examines a whole lot of that idea of still being here and things like that in a broader picture with songs like Do You Realize, the older you get.
No, I think I've just been lucky that the things that I'm interested in singing about or whatever, do have a kind of, it doesn't really matter who you are, you can sort of relate to it, sort of response to some of it. And so as I've gotten older, instead of my life becoming, or the things I sing about becoming smaller and personal, they sort of become more bigger and universal, and that's just sheer luck. I mean, I think all songwriters and all artists, you really just have to do what you like and sort of throw yourself into it. And I'm really just lucky that the things I want to sing about, people think, it's interesting.
Do you think that you develop a greater sense of humanity the older you get or something then, Wayne?
Well, I don't know, but I do know this. Within the context of music, a lot of things that can be really mundane or really no big deal, even the way that we're talking right now. So sometimes if you put that to music, it can sound very epic and very noble and very, like a big idea. And I think that happens a lot with our music because we're talking about very simple, everyday sort of things. But sometimes the power of the music and the power of the arrangements and all that elevate these simple little statements to be these giant epiphanies of thought. And really it's just by sheer accident, I think, that because of just the combination of the things that we like to sing about and the combination of the music that we like to play and the way that we would like to do arrangements, I think it makes it look like we're standing on the top of a mountain.
Is it not harder to sort of simplify things in so fewer words? I mean, a song like Do You Realize is very sort of heartfelt and sort of unabashedly sincere. If you were to read the lyrics,
right? But I think
themselves.
What happens because we've made records for so long. I think this is our 12th record or something like that, and even from the beginning, we've produced our own records and sort of dictated, what they're going to sound like or whatever. I think we've learned that sometimes the greatest things that can happen are really just not accidental, but they just sort of erupt out of you. And I can remember even writing some of the lines for the song Do You Realize, and sitting there with my little 4-track and a microphone, and you say things and you have there's a certain momentum of the music going along, and you can think, I don't know if that's going to work or whatever it's going to be, and you do it and you play for someone and they go, wow, that's really so simple but so perfect. But at the same time, you don't know that. You can't really think of it in those terms. You simply just have to do it and hope that it works. It's just a combination of things that you can't, I don't think you can arrive at it by thought. I think you just have to be doing stuff and say, oh, that works.
Yeah, well, I mean, on the other side of it, you were saying it also, when you combine it with a performance or production, it causes a great effect. The other fantastic thing about Flaming Lips seems to be you've also sort of been able to hone in on what constitutes a good sort of visceral perforence for an audience.
Well, sure, yeah.
Things like confetti and fake blood and hand puppets. I mean...
Well, that's what anybody would do that. It would work, I swear to God. I mean, I think little by little we've been able... And the reason we started to do this sort of, I guess you'd call it sort of like, it's like an exaggerated birthday party for like a 6-year-old.
Well, I'd call it pantomime if that doesn't offend you.
No, in a way, it really is all these things that could really seem stupid and too outrageous to work. And the reason we started to do some of these things is when we put out the record, The Soft Bulletin, we were playing shows, and if we were to sing too many songs from The Soft Bulletin, basically these songs are about death and about this whole confrontation with what is the meaning of your own life and what is the meaning you're going to give your own life. But a lot of it does have to do with confronting this idea that we're all going to die. And you sing 6 or 7 songs like that in a row, and it starts to bum people out, Chris. And so I think little by little we started to think, would do these things that would let people know, hey, this is a performance, and you don't have to be totally absorbed into what we're saying to realize that it can be powerful. And so I started to have these puppets, and I would throw confetti, and we would make, there'd be a contrast to, even though we're singing about death, let's remember that we're here to be alive and to have fun. And it just sort of escalated from that. And so I think nowadays it's so ridiculous. I mean, we have people up there, I've heard you're going to be one of them, dressed up,
I'm hoping,
in these animal costumes, and we have these giant blow-up suits that people get in, and I pour blood on my head, and I have confetti that I throw around, and we have these films that play with us, and hopefully it really is an intense experience that you walk away saying, well, I've never seen anything like that. I mean, for good or bad. I really hope that we do something unique.
Well, it is quite a good, I mean, it must be for you as well. I mean, when you're older, it must be easier to sort of make a summation of pop and rock culture and know what excites you and know what looks good.
Well, I think you give us too much credit.
But some of the other things that Flaming Lips have done in more recent times, other bands of your stature probably wouldn't have the humility or even scope to do, like things like playing as Beck's backing band.
Well, but see, but to me, that sort of stuff is just interesting, and I think it doesn't really require any. To me, that's a no-brainer. Someone like, because I really do admire Beck's music, and I think, and we'd actually done that before. There's a guy in a band that was called the Moles. I think they're actually from
Richard
Sydney.
Davies.
Richard
He's a
Davies.
genius.
Yes, and so when we were recording, I think it was in 1995 when we were recording, we knew that he was in Boston, and we talked to him about, hey, if you want to get a band together and play some of this music. We knew that his band didn't exist anymore. And we said, why don't you come and be, the Flaming Lips would be your band, and we'll go out and sort of play these songs. And so we'd had some experience doing that. And so when Beck said, hey, would you guys want to do this? We thought, this would be we want to do interesting things. We don't like just, doing the same thing over and over, which is what sometimes you have to do when you're sort of promoting records for a year and a half or 2 years or whatever. But to do these things that are like, once in a lifetime sort of interesting things. And so, yeah. But again, I don't think it requires really humility or any of that sort of stuff. Someone like Beck asks you to do something like that. You're like, yeah, sure.
You've also set your sights further afield more recently, Wayne, because you've been working on Christmas on Mars, a film which I need to ask you about because it was actually due about a month ago. It was supposed to be out the end of 2003. What happened?
When I began working on it, and you have to remember, it isn't like a Hollywood production. This is really just me and my friends who are great filmmakers. A lot of the guys that I'm working with have made their own little independent films and stuff. I started working on this in 2001, and I think I would have announced to the world even then that it wasn't going to be ready till 2004 or 2005, they would have said, this is crazy, because it's too far to think ahead. And so I originally thought it would be ready in 2002. But in the back of my mind thinking, I don't really know how long it's going to take. And then I announced that it'd be ready by 2003, just so people wouldn't think that I was insane. But obviously 2003, it's come and gone now. I'm not really sure what time frame my movie is set in. It looks like it's kind of, it could be in the past or some distant future. I'm not really sure. It's some sort of frozen moment in time. I think that we're using the idea of people living on Mars, and this whole idea that they're scientists, and the idea of where is the power of belief. And this whole idea around Christmas is, of course, do you believe in this idea of Christmas? Not necessarily of Santa Claus and Jesus and all that sort of stuff, but this idea of sort of mankind nourishing itself and saying that we care about each other. And we pick a day and we say, well, we're going to celebrate that we care about each other on this day. And does that mean anything to people? And some people are really cynical about it. You find little by little that some people just don't care about it. And I think it's wonderful. I mean, I really do. I think the Flaming Lips music, sometimes I describe it to people who don't know what it's about. A lot of times we'll be like going through customs, even to get into the country here. And people say, the Flaming Lips, what kind of music do you do? And I'll tell them it's like Christmas music from outer space. And for some reason, like, oh, okay, I can understand that. And I don't think that that's too far off the mark. I mean, I don't think everything that we've done has been like that, but I think there's an element of what we do that has some longing, some, not religiousness about it, but something longing for some answer to some of this stuff. And I think I find that in Christmas music a lot, where
it can make it feel like Christmas every day.
There you go. That would be a great, if I could do that to people, that would be a great thing.
We might have a listen to one of your songs now, which makes it feel like Christmas every day, a thing called Sunship Balloons.
There you go. Nice one. There you go.
On the most recent Ego Tripping EP. Thank you so much for finally coming back.
Well, thank you for having me in here, Chris.
I vote for you to come back more sooner next time.
Well, hopefully we will, yeah. Because, like you said, 1995 to 2000 and 2004. Wow, we're just different people now. It's a whole different world.
Come back to launch the movie or something, right?
I should, huh? All right, well, I'll do it. Okay. All right.
This is the Flaming Lips now on Static with Sunship Balloons. Thank you very much, Wayne. It's great to finally have you back in Australia.
All right, thanks.
Now listen, I don't know the dimensions of outer space.